for your interest. Thanks for joining us this evening. As I just mentioned, we made the commitment early on that we would be holding these periodic update calls just to keep everybody informed of the progress that we're making on our very important strategic planning process. So, Abby, if you'll do the honors.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll recall that we got approval to move forward with this planning process back in November of last year. At that time, we hired Maura Mitchell, who owns a company called Brandology out of Santa Barbara, to lead the team through the process. She's an excellent facilitator and has actually had a lot of experience in the last year leading these kinds of processes via Zoom and other virtual type methods. And thus far, our experience with her has been nothing but positive. We also at that time set up a steering committee, which is basically the committee, the executive committee from the board, along with Abby and myself from staff. And we've got Dean Neff representing the ed team, and we've got Bill Van Skyke representing the alumni. And this group is really established to manage and guide the process, ensuring that we stay on budget, stay on time, and really provide kind of a quality control mechanism. And the good news is so far we're on budget and on time. Next slide, please. So the project goal right from the get-go was to create a strategic plan for Cal Ag Leadership Foundation that is a roadmap for impact and progress over the next 3 to 5 years. We talked a little bit about at the beginning as to whether we wanted this to be a 5-year plan or a 5 to 7 year plan, but clearly organizations, associations, foundations these days are making these plans much closer in terms of timing, just because things are changing so much faster these days. There seems to be more uncertainty in the world these days. So therefore, strategic plans are getting a little narrower in focus, which personally I think is great because it enables more accountability and ensures better results. Kicked off that steering committee, gathered input, interviewed key stakeholders. As I said in the beginning, we talked to we got feedback from stakeholders via the interviews that we executed and also the surveys that we distributed. We got feedback from more than 300 constituents or stakeholders in the foundation, which we thought was excellent and certainly enabled us to really get a jump start on both the SWOT analysis and to identify key questions or key issues. As you can see on that third bullet there, the stakeholder groups really covered everybody who has a vested interest in the foundation, from staff to board to the ed team, donors, alumni leadership, alumni, former foundation leaders, influencers in the ag industry, influencers outside the ag industry. Excuse me. So really a good broad group of stakeholders to provide a lot of input. And some of you may have will remember that we hosted 2 webinars at the beginning of the process, kind of lay out the plan for the alumni. Next slide, please. So as I said, we conducted more than 60 interviews, fielded 3 surveys. They were primarily dedicated to the staff, Class 50, and the alumni group. Got more than 260 responses off the survey plus the 60. So there's the 320 that I talked to. We asked the strategy team to do some pre-work to consider the future of California ag. We thought before we actually got into the planning process itself, we should get kind of some alignment in terms of where we thought the industry currently stood, where it was going, what some of the key trends were impacting industry, both on the positive as well as the negative side. So the plan itself, coming out of that, was to get that state of the industry clarified, get some picture of where we thought ag would be in California in 2026, do a SWOT, come up with key issues to address, and then from that, identify 5, 6 critical issues, critical priorities that we wanted to address. So that's what we're going to take you through for the rest of the presentation. Let's move on. I think the next one is the SWOT. Yep. So really, really good alignment, good variety, good depth and breadth on the SWOT analysis. As far as the strengths are concerned, the consensus opinion from everybody weighed in that our strengths today are really all the people associated with the foundation and its programs, the reputation of the foundation and its programs, the legacy associated with the foundation itself, the relationship that we enjoy with our 4 partner universities, the curriculum, which still today stands out as the best, certainly in this country, if not the world, when it comes to ag leadership programs or educational curriculum. The impact that the program has had on alumni or fellows' lives, the connection that we enjoy with our alumni, the financial stability that the foundation enjoys today is certainly the best that it's ever had. The demand for the program continues to be strong. We're seeing that already with the applications for Class 51. And the fact that the program itself today is very focused on doing one thing very, very well. So those emerged, and there were more, but these were the ones that we thought were the strongest and certainly the most important from all the input that we got on strengths. As far as weaknesses, and there are several weaknesses as well, certainly the legacy can perhaps lead to a resistance to change, which at times needs to be addressed and possibly overcome. The fact that the relationship that we've had with alumni may still be unsettled. There's been some feedback suggesting that things have improved and certainly are moving in the right direction, but we know that hasn't always been the case. Many transitions to manage over the course of the last, say, 10 years. Program feels vulnerable to some, especially considering the fact that we've got so many key faculty participants retiring soon. The expense of the program continues to escalate. Obviously, it's not inexpensive to execute. Some believe that diversity is lacking in fellows and in the organization. That continues to resonate across the board. It's somewhat narrow in its donor base. I mentioned that the financial stability is very, very strong, but the donor base remains relatively narrow. We're not powerfully enough communicating with stakeholders. There's opportunities to improve the way we communicate and at times coordinate. Haven't always thought or acted boldly or had clear measurable goals. And finally, our database has significant issues, and we realize we need to make some improvements there if we're going to execute more effectively going forward. This next slide is the one that I think is the most exciting, and that's the opportunities slide. And the good news is the opportunities far outweigh the number of threats. And again, we tried to consolidate this down to those that we thought were the most significant or the most important, starting with the opportunity to evolve, to increase our impact. And we're working through what that might possibly mean. Opportunity to collaborate and partner with like-minded organizations. We find that there's a number of similar type associations, organizations, foundations that are very, very interested in somehow aligning themselves with us. Opportunity to revamp or update the existing program. Opportunity to maybe add new programs. We believe we can recruit fellows from a broader, more diverse pool, increase the diversity of all parts of the organization. That ties back to one of the weaknesses that we identified. Succession planning for all parts of the team is an opportunity, as is increasing alumni engagement. Again, we've seen some significant improvements here in recent months, but we all know there's still further opportunity for improvement there. Opportunities to expand our fundraising activities and programs build stronger ties to the non-ag community where it makes sense, and opportunities to increase our communication. So a great list of opportunities that we'll build off of when we start fleshing out our specific objectives and plans. And then finally, as it relates to the SWOT on the threat side, COVID-19 and the uncertainty and challenges that has brought with it has certainly been a threat. Competition from some other programs that at times seem to try to model what it is we're doing is potentially a threat. Becoming irrelevant, or at least being seen as irrelevant, because we're not addressing maybe some difficult issues, especially this year. I mean, we all can certainly understand and appreciate this coming after a summer of so much unrest socially with Black Lives Matter and many challenges associated with diversity, equity, and inclusion. Excuse me, ag consolidation is leading to fewer people seeing value in the program, maybe. The world, of course, is moving faster. Too much time is required to be in the program, some feel. Increasing tension between large and small producers exists in certain parts. Declining health and stability of the ag industry in California itself. Ability to show ROI on the program to our donors. And the university partnerships are under some pressure. Of course, we're all well aware of what's going on with higher education in the state. And as that happens, some of that institutional knowledge or memory can potentially be lost. So we do have some threats, and we're taking those into account as we're building our plans as well. So at this point in time, I'm going to pass the baton to Abby, who will take us through the balance of the presentation. Abby?
Thank you. So we have a few teams that have come together associated with that SWOT analysis that Dwight just walked you through. So out of that, we identified that it's time to take a new look at our vision, mission, and values. It's been about 11 years since we last looked at and updated those. So we'll take a look and see if they need to be updated, refreshed, or if they still reflect the organization as they're currently written. Additionally, there are 6 critical priority teams that came out of that analysis. So increasing our sphere of influence, it'll be looking at partnerships. It'll be looking at whether or not there are other organizations that we could be working with in order to have a greater impact. Education and curriculum, taking a look at our very unique, impactful program and whether there are things that could be updated, keeping our core foundational values within the program, but is there more that could be done? Are there different things that could be done as the industry evolves, as our society changes? Is there more that we could do with the program that would impact the fellows even further? Alumni engagement. So to Dwight's point, we did receive feedback that some alumni don't feel as connected. And we've really put a lot of focus in the last few years on alumni learning opportunities. So it's looking at, are there more opportunities in that realm? Are there more ways to work with our alumni to keep them engaged in the organization and its programs? And, I think really we know that the intent of our program for a long time has really been to be the first step in the learning for our fellows, as they become alumni, that the learning should only grow. And so we really want to see if there are new and different ways that we can facilitate that or build upon what we're already doing. Financial strength is pretty self-evident in that we just want to make sure that our program is well funded so that all the things that come out of this plan, we have funding streams, or we have a plan in order to fund those into the long term. Marketing and communications, we know that there are a number of opportunities. You might notice that we've spent more time on social media lately. We have presence on LinkedIn like we've never had before. Big thanks to Judy Sparacino on our staff. But we know there are a lot of other opportunities. So working with that team to identify what those could be and some metrics around those. And finally, fellow selection. Our board recently heard from Dr. Pat Latore, who's really a critical, I would say, critical author of our curriculum. And in that conversation, it becomes very evident that the fellows and putting the fellows together in such a way that leads to the most productivity of the class is really important. It leads to the most learning from one another and within the curriculum. So we really felt like it was important to have a team completely dedicated to that conversation, which will then inform our alumni, our ed team, and so on and so forth into the future. So the key questions, some of the key questions, these are really key categories of questions that we are talking about as teams, include this list that you see here. Like I said, there are a number of sub questions under most of these, but just a few of them, why do we exist? What's our ultimate purpose and objective? And for whom? I think that's a big part of that question that many of the teams will be talking about. And, how do we remain relevant and unique in the long term? And can we keep our foundation? Can we keep our core curriculum and also continue to modify it based on things that are happening in our world and our industry? Is the 4-campus model still the best way to deliver the program? Are there other partnerships that should be made? Should we take a look at other models? And how do we build and enhance our education team? I think there's a lot of talk about sustainability, both in bringing new team members on to that education team, but are there different ways to look at those partnerships? And I think looking to how we optimize, how we look for and assess our candidates. I think there's a lot of interest in having some information that we can share with our alumni who select candidates from the organization that helps them to, as they make choices, there's more that we could do in that realm. And how do we become more financially independent and sustainable in the long term? Let's think big, let's think about what we want to be and what we want to do, and how do we fund that over the long haul? Those are just a few of the key questions. And these are, like I said, many teams will be looking at these, they'll be identifying those that are most applicable to what they're working on. And then all of that information will come back to the steering committee in the form of recommendations and for discussion. The project timeline, so you can see here in the grayed area that we've done a lot already. We started this process in December, but there's still quite a bit to do. So over the next few weeks, we'll be having critical priority team meetings of those 9 teams. Each of them will meet twice or more. And from there, preliminary recommendations related to goals and strategies will go to the steering committee and the strategy committee. And then from there, feedback will be provided back, more work will be done by the teams, and then a plan will be created to share and to discuss. We're also doing some check-ins with our ed team and our alumni council around these preliminary recommendations. And we expect to have a final plan ready for approval that first week of May of this year, so that we, as your staff and your board and leadership, we can start working on the tactics associated with these different goals and strategies. From there, we'd love to hear any questions or comments that you have about this process.